The flashing red and blue lights washed over my quiet ranch, painting the fields in uneasy color. That Saturday evening, 3 patrol cars rumbled up my gravel driveway, their sirens silent, but their presence impossible to ignore. I set my coffee mug down on the porch railing and walked toward them, my boots crunching against the stone path. The lead officer stepped forward, his hand resting casually, yet deliberately, on his utility belt. Not on his weapon, but close enough to make a point. "Sir, we received a 911 call about suspicious activity and possible trespassing on this property," he said evenly. "We'll need to see some identification." I moved slowly, keeping my hands visible as I reached for my wallet. "Officer, my name is Marcus Chen. I own this ranch." "May I ask who made the call?" He checked the small notepad in his hand. The caller identified herself as Karen Whitfield, president of the Willowbrook HOA. She stated that an unauthorized person was occupying the property and refusing to leave. A faint smile tugged at my lips. Karen Whitfield, of course. I knew exactly who she was, though she had no clue who I really was. This was about to get interesting. "Officer," I said, "I purchased this ranch 6 months ago. I've got all the documentation inside if you'd like to verify ownership." I handed over my driver's license. And just so we're clear, this property is outside the Willowbrook HOA boundary by about half a mile. 2 weeks earlier, I'd first met Karen. My peaceful Sunday morning had been interrupted by an aggressive knock at my front door. When I opened it, there she stood, a woman in her early 50s, wearing a fitted blazer despite the warm sun, clutching a clipboard like a sword. Her highlighted hair was styled in that unmistakable, "I demand to speak to your manager" fashion. "I'm Karen Whitfield, president of the Willowbrook Homeowners Association," she declared before I could greet her. "We need to discuss your violations." Leaning casually against the doorframe, I frowned. "Violations? There must be a mistake. This property isn't part of any HOA. Her eyes narrowed behind her designer glasses. "That's where you're wrong. The Willowbrook HOA has expanded its jurisdiction to include all properties within a 1-mile radius of our community borders. You'll need to register immediately and bring your property up to code." I kept my tone patient. "That's not how HOAs work, ma'am. You can't just decide to extend your authority over properties that weren't part of the original development." She thrust a thick stack of papers toward me. "These are your violation notices. Your fence is the wrong color. You have unauthorized livestock, and that barn. Don't even get me started on that barn. You have 30 days to comply or face fines. I didn't take the papers." "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." "This is private property and you have no authority here." Her face flushed an angry red. "We'll see about that. I know people, important people. You'll be hearing from our lawyers." After she stormed off, I did what any careful property owner would do. I installed security cameras. Lots of them. High definition, night vision, audio recording. The works. Something told me I was going to need evidence. I was right. The harassment began almost immediately. Fake violation notices appeared on my gate daily, each one more absurd than the last. My mailbox is filled with bogus official HOA letters threatening thousands in fines. And then she started getting bold. One morning, I caught her inside my property line snapping photos of my horses. "Ma'am, you're trespassing," I called out, making sure the security cameras caught everything. "Please leave immediately." She turned toward me, smiling triumphantly. "These horses aren't registered with the HOA Livestock Committee. Each one is a $500 fine per day." I sighed, keeping my voice even. "There is no HOA Livestock Committee that has jurisdiction here. You need to leave now, or I'll have to call the police." "You do that," she sneered. "Sheriff Thompson is my brother-in-law. Let's see how that goes for you." But I didn't call yet. Instead, I documented everything. Every trespass, every fake notice, every voicemail filled with threats. I was building quite a file on Karen Whitfield. What she didn't know was that I wasn't just some random ranch owner. I was the senior president of development for Pinnacle Property Group, the company that held the master contract for Willowbrook HOA's legal services and property management. Things came to a head when I refused to register my horses with her imaginary committee. That's when she decided to take it up a notch by calling 911 and reporting me as a dangerous trespasser on my own land. So now, here I stood, in my driveway surrounded by flashing lights. The lead officer's expression changed as he ran my license. "Mr. Chen, I apologize for the confusion. You're clearly the legal owner of this property, but we'll need to have a word with Ms. Whitfield about filing a false report." "Officer," I said, "I think I can help with that." I opened my laptop and queued up a few clips. "I've been documenting Ms. Whitfield's harassment for the past 2 weeks. Security footage, trespassing, fake legal notices. You'll want to see this." 20 minutes later, the officers watched in silence as the evidence played. Karen trespassing, leaving threats, trying to enforce imaginary HOA rules. Their expressions hardened with each clip. "Mr. Chen," the lead officer said finally, "would you like to press charges for harassment and trespassing?" I considered it, then smiled slightly. "Let me make a call first," I replied. "I think there's a bigger issue here that needs to be handled." And with that, I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I knew by heart. "Janet, it's Marcus Chen. I need you and Richard from HR to come to my ranch immediately," I said into the phone, my tone calm but firm. "We've got a situation involving one of our contracted HOA board members." "Yes, Karen Whitfield from Willowbrook. She just filed a false police report against me." There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. Janet, president of our property management division, answered quickly. "We'll be there in 30 minutes. Mr. Chen, I'm so sorry this happened." While we waited, I walked the officers through the evidence I'd gathered. Each fake fine, every manufactured violation, every attempt to extend HOA authority beyond its legal boundaries. They took careful notes and photographs, documenting everything. Half an hour later, Janet's car appeared at the gate, followed closely by Richard from Human Resources. To my surprise, Karen was with them. They'd picked her up from her home under the pretense of an urgent HOA meeting. The look on her face when she saw the patrol cars was priceless, pure confusion bleeding into dread. And when her eyes landed on me, standing beside the officers, her indignation flared. "What's going on here?" she demanded, voice trembling with outrage. "Why am I being brought to this violator's property?" Janet stepped forward, her expression as cold as steel. "Ms. Whitfield, are you aware that Mr. Chen is the senior vice president of Pinnacle Property Group?" The color drained from Karen's face in an instant. That's impossible," she stammered. "He's just some guy who bought a ranch." "A ranch," Richard cut in, his tone sharp, "that sits completely outside HOA jurisdiction. Yet you've been harassing him, trespassing on his property, and now you've filed a false police report. Do you have any idea how serious this is?" Karen's voice shook as she tried to recover. "I was just doing my job. The HOA board voted to expand our authority. I have documentation." "No, you don't," Janet interrupted coldly. "I've already spoken with the other board members. There was no vote. You acted entirely on your own, abusing your position to harass and intimidate homeowners. This ends right now," the lead officer stepped forward. "Ms. Whitfield, filing a false police report is a misdemeanor offense. You knowingly reported a fake emergency, wasting law enforcement resources. I'm citing you for false reporting and harassment." "This is ridiculous," Karen sputtered. "I know people. My brother-in-law is the sheriff." "Former sheriff," the officer corrected evenly. "He retired 3 years ago. Ma'am, you're looking at up to 6 months in jail and a $5,000 fine for the false report alone, not including any civil penalties Mr. Chen may pursue." Richard cleared his throat, stepping closer. "Ms. Whitfield, effective immediately, you are terminated from your position on the Willowbrook HOA board. Pinnacle Property Group is severing all ties with you. Furthermore, you'll be personally liable for any legal fees incurred by Mr. Chen and our company due to your actions." "You can't do this," Karen cried, her voice rising to a shrill pitch. "I've been HOA president for 8 years. The neighborhood needs me." "The neighborhood," Janet said firmly, "needs someone who follows the law. Security will arrive at your home tomorrow to collect all HOA property, computers, files, keys, everything. If you attempt to access any HOA system or property after today, you'll face additional charges." The reality hit her like a collapsing wall. Karen's shoulders slumped, her confidence evaporating. The clipboard she clutched so tightly slipped from her fingers and hit the ground with a dull thud. "But I was just trying to maintain standards," she said weakly, "by harassing law-abiding property owners and making up rules. I asked calmly. By abusing the small bit of authority you had? I looked her directly in the eye. Ms. Whitfield, you turned a volunteer role meant to help a community into your personal dictatorship. The officer handed her a folded citation. Ms. Whitfield, you'll receive a court date in the mail. I strongly advise you to hire legal counsel. And if you come within 500 feet of Mr. Chen or his property, you'll be arrested immediately. As the officers escorted her toward Janet's car, she muttered under her breath, something about unfairness and how no one appreciated her vision for the community. But the truth had finally caught up to her. She was facing criminal charges, thousands in fines, and the complete loss of the authority she'd abused for years. Janet turned back to me, her face softening. Mr. Chen, I can't tell you how sorry I am about this. We'll be reviewing every action Ms. Whitfield took as HOA president. I expect we'll be reversing quite a few of her decisions. I appreciate that, I said. Just make sure the next board president understands the limits of HOA authority. When the cars finally pulled away, silence returned to the ranch. The red and blue reflections faded from the windows and the air felt still again. I picked up my now cold coffee and walked back to the porch. In the distance, my horses grazed peacefully, unregistered, unbothered, and blissfully unaware that they'd been the center of a ridiculous power struggle. 3 weeks later, 2 letters arrived in my mailbox. The first was from the district attorney's office, confirming that Karen Whitfield had pled no contest to filing a false report and harassment. Her sentence, 6 months probation, 100 hours of community service, and $5,000 in fines, plus another $8,000 to cover my legal fees. The second letter came from the newly elected Willowbrook HOA board. It was a formal apology for the actions and overreach of the previous administration. They'd uncovered that Karen had been systematically abusing her position for years, creating rules, levying fines, and funneling the money into an account only she controlled. The forensic accountants were still untangling the mess, but early findings showed she'd embezzled nearly $50,000 during her 8-year reign as president. I set both letters aside and stepped out into the sun. My horses lifted their heads briefly, then returned to grazing. They didn't know or care about HOA politics. They were just happy to be free. Sometimes the best way to deal with a bully isn't to fight them directly. Sometimes you just have to let them swing so high they end up hitting something much bigger than they ever expected. In Karen's case, she swung at a ranch owner and hit her boss's boss instead. The last I heard, she'd moved 2 states away to live with her sister. Her reputation in Willowbrook was in ruins. Her HOA kingdom reduced to ashes because she couldn't resist trying to intimidate the wrong person. Her combined $13,000 in fines and legal fees became an expensive lesson in authority and accountability. Proof that power, when abused, always comes with a price.